Alright, you guys, for today's Black History Month feature, where we are celebrating Black contributions to the video game industry, you can check out our topic for today using the Feb 27 command. Yesterday's command has been updated. It was February 25th, but it was supposed to be February 26th. I made a mistake. So today we're going to be talking about blurred culture. And I admit, today's topic is not something I'm very well versed in. I wouldn't really consider myself a blerd, but I guess I am because, you know, I love video games. I'm into comics. I'm not necessarily into like anime or like cosplay or anything, but I think blurred culture just represents what you yourself feel like in terms of your blending of culture and nerd, you know, the nerd community. So we're going to be talking about some of those cool supporters of that community and people in that community. For real, Dad Haitian Wisher, I know you're part of the Blerd gang. So let's start with the first link on the list, which is blerd.com. This is a great resource for people who, you know, want to know anything about, you know, pop culture, technology, gaming, and all with support for the Black community. So highlighting great achievements by people, as well as, you know, pretty much being a marketplace and providing all sorts of great information for people who want to get their Blerd on. So I actually have a great article here from them speaking specifically about the emergence of Black streamers and video game content creators. And some of these people I'm sure you guys are going to know. So I'm not really going to go too deep into it. But if you go on their gaming page, for example, they've got awesome articles like that one about streamers. They have this really cool article from Afros to Crowns, why Black gaming hairstyles deserve a standing ovation. We all know that representation in games goes beyond just putting the skin color. We've talked all month about the fact that you need to have authentic representation, and that comes down to our hair as well. You know, whether we are in a character creator or even just a main character or an NPC, we're far past the point where the only two available hairstyles in a video game are an afro and some cornrows. Another cool article in here is the evolution of diversity in gaming, where they're talking about embracing inclusivity and representation. So for me, I think these are really cool reporting on points of view, incorporating, you know, Black American, particularly culture, with all of those areas that we're interested in, whether it be anime, cosplay, comics, video games, movies, whatever. So I want to share with you a list of some of the Black streamers and gamers that they're highlighting on their page, which they've broken down here earlier this month. They actually have some pioneers in the streaming area. You know, like streaming has been growing ever since, you know, the mid 2000s, and you know, we have lots more platforms popping up where people are starting to ply their trade. So for example, Twitch is one of the biggest ones, YouTube gaming, Facebook gaming also, and there's also Kick. But yeah, these are some of the notable people who have been streaming almost since the beginning. So Afromoo, he started the same year that Twitch launched in 2011. He's a former professional League of Legends player. We've got NMPLOL, NMPLOL, who is one of those, you know, World of Warcraft and Counter-Strike Go and Hearthstone players. Here's one that I'm very familiar with, Cypher of Tyr, who has been an advocate and activist in the gaming space. She has been streaming for over 10 years. She even made a nonprofit called I Need Diverse Games in 2016 as a response to Ubisoft. Remember that really famous and smart game director at Ubisoft who said that they can't animate female characters? You know, when we were anticipating the release of Assassin's Creed Unity, well, she started I Need Diverse Games as a result of that, to show that diversity in gaming is not a chore, and that you have to show inclusivity in gaming because you're representing the population that's playing your games. So she streams on Twitch very regularly. I know that you know, she was really active during the pandemic. She streams all sorts of different games. I've actually met her at Ubisoft in Toronto, to be honest. We have some really cool, famous names that you probably heard of. Corey Kenshin, for example. He does, I think, comedic kind of videos, but I think lately he's also talking about the importance of good mental health. Myth, he's a streamer that's primarily on YouTube. Or you're a fan of Corey? That's awesome. He streams Fortnite games and stuff like that. There's a group called RDC World, which does gaming and skits on Twitch and YouTube. I'm not really familiar with them at all, but they're one of those creator houses kind of things. Pretty much everybody knows about Kai Cenat. He's like one of the biggest streamers on Twitch, and he's only been around for a couple of... You're gonna listen today? Adobe, it's nice to see you again. Welcome back to Asoroch. We're talking about Blerd culture. And yeah, so Kai Cenat is a really popular Twitch streamer, you know, who's garnered attention from a lot of celebrities as well. But one of the things that Blerd is also highlighting is the fantastic women in the streaming space. So of course, starting off with Black Girl Gamers, which is a group that supports Black women around the world with, you know, not just streaming on their channels and platforms, but also connecting them to jobs in the industry and providing talent for, you know, promotion and other stuff like that. They even consulted on the game, yes, Jeanne Lopez, their fearless leader. They also consulted on the development of Forspoken, but it was very, very late in the game when it was already too late to actually implement any of the changes that they suggested in terms of making the main character sound more authentic. One person I think you guys also know is Story Mode Bay. I really have always loved her content. I think she also started out as one of, you know, started out on Twitch and grew her channel from gaming to other areas of entertainment. And she has even represented Twitch at the Olympic Games. So she has had a really meteoric rise, and she's a fantastic content creator. Another one is Jazzy Guns, who is based in the what do you call it? She's based in Maryland, so that's one of the reasons why I think she's kind of cool. She does streaming on YouTube. I think she's now like an Xbox partner. I think she used to do more PlayStation games and a little bit more of a variety on different platforms. But she does lots of like scary games and, you know, story-based games and fighting games and stuff like that. She's really cool. I love the way that she has such a colorful setup, and I love the way she has a list. One of my favorite things is when she's playing a game and she sees characters. So for example, like, we know when Peter was like infested with venom power, right? And Witcher, I know how much you were talking about, you know, how you wanted to beat him up and stuff like that. One of my favorite things about Jazzy Guns is the way she goes, he's on my list. And she even has, if you see in the background of this picture, she even has like a chalkboard where she write people's name on her list, like people she's gonna, smack upside the head. And of course, Ex Mira Mira has been a, strong member of the Sims community. She has developed skin tones and hairstyles and stuff like that as mods in. Yes, I love it. Her list is so funny. Skin tones and mods for skin tones and like hairstyles and fashion for people in the films. She has actually joined Queen's GG, which is a gaming company focused on inclusion, and it's led by women. So looking forward, one of the things that has been really interesting to see is how mainstream streaming has become. We saw AOC take to Twitch during the 2020 US presidential campaign. But apart from that, they're like huge names of Drake, T-Pain, Snoop Dogg, singers, actors, and stuff like that who are on Twitch, who are gamers themselves, and bringing that also to their own streaming channels. And surprisingly enough, even during the recent Super Bowl, Beyonce was also shown streaming on Twitch under the name I Am Slayonce. So she actually has apparently her own Twitch channel. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, but I love her tagline, I slay all day. Oh, and I'm the real Beyonce. I like that. So that's just one of the articles here on Blerd.com. We're talking about Blerd's. Yeah. You want to see her channel? Here it is. Here's her channel. I Am Slayonce. She's got 71,000 followers. I'm not joking. Yeah, that's her channel. Twitter, Beyonce.com, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. That's her Twitch channel. Yeah, exactly. She knows how to elevate her platform. Dollar welcome back to Aslo Roch. Witcher, do your job, man. Stop spectating and shout out my homies. All right. So Blerd, as I said, Blerd.com is a wonderful resource for people who are into different types of Black nerd culture. Thank you. I really suggest you guys check out some of their articles. They don't just talk about gaming. They have a store. They have a blog. They talk about business opportunities and stuff like that. So check them out. The next article I want to show is I touched on before how Blerd culture is going mainstream. It's to the point now where even NPR has picked it up, and they have done an interview with some Blerds to talk about the emergence of Blerd culture, why it's so popular, why it's so important as part of the community today. They talk about the history of how, I think you guys all agree with me. When I was a kid, I didn't identify with the kids in my class. I was the only Black person. I changed schools a lot. And I remember one school in particular, you jumped like a thief in the night. That's funny. One of the schools I was in, I was the only Black student on the second floor. So our school was 2 floors. And I was only 2 Black kids in my school. And the other kid was like in grade 1. And the racism at my school was so rampant that at one point that young lady who was 6 years old or so started to, whenever she saw me outside at recess, she started to insult me with racial epithets. And it's obviously something people had done to her. And so she, didn't really know any better and started doing it to me. So that was the environment that I was in when I had people who were into Dungeons and Dragons and those sorts of things. And I think even still to this day, living in that environment still is one of the reasons why I hate high fantasy, and I hate what they call quote unquote high fantasy and anything to do with knights and orcs and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, because those are the people who played those games. Those are people who were around me. Like, I'm not saying like some of them were my friends and stuff, but just knowing that I just felt like that wasn't for me. That wasn't something that I wanted to be part of. And you guys have seen, like, since the advent of the murder of George Floyd, that Wizards of the Coast and all these other people who were making Dungeons and Dragons and games like that have admitted that the entire lore and the entire ethos of those particular types of games, tabletop games and stuff like that, were based on racism. So races like the orcs or the dwarves or something like that, who were inferior to the elves and stuff like that, was always based on anti-Black racism. So I think it's come a long way since then. You do have people like Cypher of Tyr that we talked about just a few minutes ago, who have made their own kind of tabletop communities to counteract those stories that are steeped in anti-Black racism. And that's why I think there's things are a lot more. And I think the fact that Black people have got together and become vocal about their interests and their, continuing to show up and show out, whether it's cosplay or in comics and stuff like that, making their own comic stories, making their own games, making their own characters, and finally being shown in things like Star Wars and Star Trek and other stuff like that. I think that's so much better than when I was younger. Because back then, the people I knew who were nerds were, they were into Star Trek, The Next Generation. There was only ever one Black character on the show for a long time, stuff like that. So this is a cool article where they're talking about how Black people have adapted and how Blerd culture has evolved. I really feel that these are, the strength of this community is what's so important, to provide that support for each other, especially when you have, white people in these, in these same spaces who think for whatever reason, we can't dress as Chun-Li, or we can't dress as Lara Croft, or we can't be a character, we can't be the subject of a video game, we can't be, anything other than a stereotype. So check out this article. It's also a recording. You can listen to it or you can read it. And yeah, I think this is just a testament to how hard people have had to work to raise their voices in the game and to stand up and be counted. So I love this one here who has taken her own twist on Chun-Li. Instead of having buns, she has 2 Afro puffs. And I used to walk around in Afro puffs for a little while, you know what I mean? So I appreciate that. Okay, the last article, the last thing I want to share with you is BlerdCon, which is coming up this summer in Washington, D.C. from July 12th to 14th. If you guys are interested in, cosplay and comics and all sorts of, marketplace and stuff like that, this is a cool place to be if you're going to be in the DC area. Blerd.com is one of the partners, of course. Paramount. They have a whole bunch of other partners and stuff like that. Yeah, it looks like it'll be a lot of fun. go check them out. And I think you may recognize some of the cosplayers here. I love this little video, like the Hamburglar over there. I don't know how many of you guys can pick out some of the characters that are in here. But this looks like, oh, look at that, Gwen Stacy and Miles Morales. And this looks like fun. So this looks like a really cool place to just come and hang out and wear your Blerd badge. Oh, this looks really cool, guys. Anyway, we're gonna switch over to the Spider-Man game now. I just want to watch this video and see all these costumes, man. These are hilarious. I love these. Anyway, we're gonna switch over. Okay. And I'm gonna start the next. We're in the middle of a big fight with Spider-Man. You found your people. You know what? I have to say, I don't go to too many of these conferences and stuff like that. I've been to one, and I feel like it was like, I've never done something like that before. So it was a little, I felt like a fish out of water. And it was very crowded. It was a lot of people. I don't really feel like I fit in. But even just looking at this, even though I'm not a big cosplayer, even just looking at these pictures of people having fun and just being themselves, like this looks like something I would have fun at. I really feel like I could enjoy this. So yeah, make sure you check out other, locations that are doing Blerd cons and stuff like that. Like this one is in DC, but I'm hoping something like that could be in your area. And hey, maybe if you guys don't have something in your area, and if there are enough of you, you can rock out with a couple of your own friends and start your own. Who knows?